The knock came just before dawn, 3 weak taps. Then silence. Jack Holloway woke with a start, hand reaching for the rifle beside his bed. Montana winter pressed against the cabin walls, wind howling through the pines like wolves on the hunt. He'd heard coyotes before, heard bears scratching at his door, but this sound was different, human. He lit the lantern with stiff fingers, pulled his coat over his union suit, and crossed the cold floor. The knock came again, softer this time, desperate. When he opened the door, the lantern light fell on a nightmare. A woman stood there, skeletal thin, holding an infant wrapped in a threadbare blanket. The baby's lips were blue. Behind her, 3 children huddled in the snow, a girl about 9. Twin boys, maybe 6, all of them barefoot with rags tied around their feet. Their eyes were enormous in their hollow faces. The woman swayed. Jack caught her before she fell. "Please," she whispered. "Take my children." Her voice cracked on the last word. Jack pulled them inside, his heart hammering. The children didn't cry, didn't speak. They just stared at him with that terrible, silent hunger. He kicked the stove door open, threw in logs, pumped the bellows until flames roared. The woman collapsed into his only chair, clutching the infant like it might dissolve. The oldest girl pressed against her mother's side, watching Jack with fierce, protective eyes. "When did they last eat?" Jack asked. 4 days, the woman said. "Real food? Longer?" Jack's stomach turned. He looked at the children's faces and saw his own son dead 3 years now, buried next to his mother in the frozen ground behind the cabin. "I knocked every door in town," the woman continued, her voice barely audible. "Yours was the last light burning." The twin boys stood by the stove, hands outstretched toward the heat. Their fingers were red, nearly frostbitten. The toddler, a little girl, maybe 3, clung to the older girl's dress. "Take them," the woman begged. "I'll go. I'll walk into the snow. Just save them." Jack knelt in front of her. Her eyes were gray, rimmed with exhaustion and shame. She couldn't have been more than 28, but grief had aged her. "How far did you walk?" he asked. "From town, 5 miles. 5 miles in this cold, with children, without shoes." Jack looked at their faces again, the silent plea in their eyes, the way they leaned toward the warmth like flowers toward the sun. He thought of his Emma, how she'd begged him to save their son while she bled out in their bed. He'd failed her. He'd failed them both. Not again. "I'll take you too," he said quietly. The woman's eyes flooded. She shook her head, disbelief and hope warring in her expression. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I have nothing. I can't pay you. I didn't ask you to." The oldest girl gripped his sleeve. "Don't hurt Mama." Jack met her eyes. "I won't. I promise." Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, for the first time in 3 years, Jack's cabin felt like something other than a tomb. Dawn broke cold and pink across the snow. Jack fried his last 4 eggs in the cast-iron skillet, boiled beans in the pot, sliced the remaining salt pork into thin strips. It was his ration for the week. For 6 people, it would last 1 meal. He didn't care. The children sat at his table. The woman had settled them there while he cooked, her hands shaking as she smoothed their hair, whispered reassurances. The baby slept in her arms, breathing steady now in the warmth. Jack set the plates down. "Eat." Hiss. The children fell on the food like starved animals. The twin boys shoveled eggs into their mouths with their hands. The toddler gnawed on salt pork, grease running down her chin. The oldest girl ate slowly, methodically, her eyes never leaving her mother. The woman pushed her plate toward the baby. "For when she wakes, you eat," Jack said firmly. "She's asleep. You're not." The woman hesitated, then obeyed. She ate mechanically, tears streaming down her face. Jack turned away, unable to watch. Shame was a private thing. When the plates were empty, the children sat back, eyes glazed with the first fullness they'd felt in weeks. The toddler climbed into Jack's lap without asking, curled against his chest, and fell asleep. He froze, unsure what to do with his hands. Finally, he wrapped one arm around her. She was so light. "My name is Sarah Brennan," the woman said quietly. "This is Lucy, Sam, Ben, Lily, and Mary." She pointed to each child in turn. "Jack Holloway." "Why are you doing this, Mr. Holloway?" Jack looked at the sleeping toddler in his arms. "Because somebody should have done it sooner." Sarah's face crumpled. She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Lucy moved to her mother's side, small hand on her back. Jack waited until Sarah composed herself. "What happened?" "My husband died 6 weeks ago," Sarah said, voice flat. "Fever. The town doctor wouldn't come without payment up front. By the time I borrowed the money, it was too late." Jack's jaw tightened. "The landlord evicted us." Sarah continued. "The church ladies said I was improvident, that my husband's death was God's judgment for our debts. I tried washing clothes, mending, anything. No one would hire me. So you walked 5 miles in the snow. I had nowhere else to go." Jack looked around his cabin, one room, one bed, shelves nearly bare. Flour down to the bottom of the sack, beans almost gone, enough for 1 man through March. For 6 people, maybe 2 weeks. "I have to leave," Sarah said suddenly. "You've been kind, but I can't." "Where will you go?" Sarah had no answer. Jack shifted Lily in his arms. "You'll stay. We'll figure out the rest." "You don't have enough food." "Then I'll get more." How Jack didn't know yet, but he'd find a way. Sam and Ben had fallen asleep against each other by the stove. Lucy watched Jack with cautious hope. Sarah held Mary close, her gray eyes searching his face for deception, for cruelty, for the trap she'd learned to expect. She found none. "Why?" she whispered again. Jack met her gaze. "I know hungry. I know cold. That's enough." Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and steady, covering their tracks from town. Inside, for the first time in months, Sarah Brennan closed her eyes and felt something she'd forgotten. Safe. That night, Jack gave the children his bed. They piled in together, Lucy on the outside, the twins in the middle, Lily curled between them. Mary slept in a drawer lined with blankets, Sarah beside her on the floor. Jack took the rocking chair by the stove. He stared at the ceiling beams. Carved into the wood were initials J+E 1880, him and Emma, their wedding year. The memories came unbidden: Emma's laugh, her hand in his, the way she'd hummed while cooking. Then the blood, so much blood, and the midwife's face when she said, "I'm sorry, Jack, they're gone." Wife and son, both. Winter had taken them like it took everything. He'd carved those initials the day they moved in. Now they mocked him a monument to what he'd lost. A floorboard creaked. Sarah stood there, Emma's shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Jack had placed it there earlier without thinking. It had hung unused for 3 years. "I should go," Sarah said quietly. Jack looked at her. "Why, I'm a burden." "You're a mother protecting her children. That's not burden. That's strength." Sarah shook her head. "The town called me shameless for begging. Said if I was a decent woman, God would have provided." Jack's anger flared, hot and sudden. "God did provide. He sent you here." Sarah's eyes widened. She pulled the shawl tighter. As if it could shield her from kindness she didn't know how to accept. "I can work," she said. "I can mend, cook, clean. I can earn our keep. You already did." How Jack gestured at the cabin, the sleeping children, the fire crackling. The sense of life that hadn't existed 12 hours ago. You woke this house up. Sarah sank into the chair across from him. Mary stirred in her drawer cradle, and Sarah rocked her gently with one foot. The motion was automatic, maternal, ancient. My husband was a good man, Sarah said. Worked hard, loved his children, but he trusted the wrong people, made bad deals. When he died, the debts fell to me. That's not your fault. The town thinks it is. The town's wrong. Sarah looked at him, really looked. Her gray eyes were sharp, assessing. You lost someone. It wasn't a question. Jack nodded. My wife. My son, 3 winters ago. I'm sorry. So am I. Oh, they sat in silence. 2 people carved hollow by loss, filling the quiet with shared understanding. Finally, Sarah asked, what will we do about food? I'll go to town tomorrow, trade for supplies. With what? Jack touched the pocket watch in his vest, his father's. The only valuable thing he owned. I'll manage. Sarah opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. She was learning, slowly, to accept help without argument. Outside, wolves howled closer than usual. Jack stood, checked his rifle. Sarah tensed. They won't come near the cabin. Jack said, not with the fire going. But he heard the lie in his own voice. Wolves were getting bolder, desperate from the long winter. He'd need to reinforce the chicken coop before they lost what little livestock he had. Sarah rose, moved to the bed where her children slept. She smoothed Lucy's hair, adjusted Ben's blanket, touched each small face with infinite tenderness. When she turned back, Jack saw tears on her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. Jack nodded. Words felt insufficient. Sarah returned to her spot on the floor. Jack added wood to the stove, settled back in the rocking chair. The initials above him caught the firelight J+E. Maybe Emma had sent Sarah here. Maybe this was forgiveness, a second chance at the family he'd lost, or maybe it was just survival. 2 broken people, 5 starving children, and 1 cabin against the cold. Either way, Jack thought as sleep finally took him. He'd see it through. Outside, the wolves howled again. Inside, 6 people breathed steady and warm. For now, that was enough. 10 days passed like a slow thaw. The cabin transformed. Sarah mended the torn curtains, swept the floors until they gleamed, organized Jack's haphazard supplies with ruthless efficiency. Lucy learned to bake bread from dwindling flour. The twins, Sam and Ben, stacked firewood under Jack's patient instruction, and Lily the toddler followed Jack everywhere. Mr. Jack, she called him, tugging his sleeve when he split logs, climbing onto his lap during meals. Falling asleep against his shoulder each evening, Jack felt something crack open in his chest every time she said his name. Sarah watched from the kitchen, Mary propped on her hip, a small smile playing at her lips. Jack caught her looking once, and she blushed. Turning back to her work, the attraction was there, unspoken but undeniable. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same cup. Their eyes met across the room and held a beat too long. At night, lying in their separate spaces, both lay awake, listening to the other breathe. But survival came first. Romance was a luxury they couldn't afford. The supplies dwindled faster than Jack anticipated. He'd traded his father's watch in town for flour, beans, cornmeal, and seed potatoes. It should have lasted through March, but 6 mouths ate more than one, and winter showed no signs of releasing its grip. On the 10th night, Jack counted what remained: 2 cups of flour, half a sack of beans, cornmeal for maybe 4 more meals. He'd have to go back to town, and this time, he had nothing left to trade. Sarah found him at the table, head in his hands. How bad? She asked quietly. Bad. She sat across from him. There's work in town. I could. No. No, Jack, they humiliated you once. I won't let them do it again. Sarah's jaw tightened. I'm not fragile. I didn't say you were. Then let me help. Jack looked at her, this woman who'd walked 5 miles in the snow to save her children, who worked from dawn to dusk without complaint, who'd survived loss and shame and kept going. She wasn't fragile. She was steel wrapped in skin. I'll figure something out, Jack said. We'll figure something out, Sarah corrected. Lucy appeared in the doorway, barefoot and sleepy. Are we leaving? No, sweetheart, Sarah said quickly. Go back to bed. I heard you talking about food. Jack's throat tightened. The girl was too young to carry such worry. We're not leaving, Jack said firmly. This is home now. Lucy studied him with those old, wise eyes. Promise, promise. She nodded, satisfied, and returned to bed. Jack and Sarah sat in the firelight, the weight of that promise settling over them. I'll go to town tomorrow, Jack said. See if Henderson will extend credit. He won't. Then I'll find someone who will. Sarah reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. Her palm was rough from work, warm from the fire. Jack stared at their joined hands, afraid to move, afraid she'd pull away. She didn't. Whatever happens, Sarah said, we face it together. Jack nodded, unable to speak. Outside, an owl called. Inside. Something shifted between them. Partnership deepening into something more. That night, Jack dreamed of spring. Redemption Springs was 20 miles of frozen mud and broken dreams. Jack rode in at noon, the town square bustling with Saturday commerce. Men clustered outside the saloon. Women hurried between shops. Children chased each other through the slush. He tied his horse outside Henderson's mercantile and steeled himself. The bell chimed as he entered. Henderson looked up from behind the counter, eyes narrowing. Holloway. Henderson. Heard you took in the Brennan widow. Jack's jaw tightened. That's right. Henderson smirked. Mighty charitable of you. I need supplies, flour, beans, salt pork. I can pay end of April when I sell the spring calves. Credit. You mean, that's right. Henderson leaned back, arms crossed. How many mouths you feeding now? 6, 7. 6? On a failing ranch. Henderson shook his head. Can't do it. Holloway, you already owe from last year's seed. Jack's hands fisted. I'm good for it. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm not a charity house. Neither was the church, apparently. Henderson's expression hardened. Watch your mouth. Jack bit back the words clawing up his throat. He needed supplies more than he needed satisfaction. What about half now? Half in April. No credit. Cash only. Jack pulled out his remaining coins. $3. Not enough for a week's supplies. Henderson counted it, slid it back. Not enough. Behind Jack. The door chimed. Mrs. Pruitt entered, the deacon's wife, nose already wrinkled in judgment. Mr. Holloway, she said coldly, I heard you're harboring that woman. I'm providing shelter to a widow and her children. Providing more than shelter, from what I hear. Jack turned slowly. Ma'am, if you've got something to say it plain. Mrs. Pruitt's cheeks flushed. Decent folk don't cohabitate outside marriage. It's sinful. Decent folk don't let children starve either, but here we are. Her mouth opened and closed like a caught fish. Henderson coughed, hiding a smirk. The Reverend says if you're going to keep that woman under your roof, Mrs. Pruitt continued, you'd best marry her proper. Otherwise, you're living in sin. Jack felt heat climb his neck. Not anger realization. She was right, not about sin, about protection. A wife had legal rights. A dependent had none. If he died, Sarah would be homeless again. But a wife could inherit the land, the cabin, everything. Marriage wasn't romance. It was survival strategy. I'll consider it, Jack said evenly. Mrs. Pruitt sniffed and swept toward the fabric counter. Jack turned back to Henderson. $3. What'll that buy? Henderson sighed. 10 pounds of flour. 5 of beans, that's it. Fine. Jack took the supplies and left before his pride could sabotage him further. Outside, Reverend Stone stood waiting tall, weathered, eyes kind beneath bushy brows. Son, he said. Got a minute? Jack nodded. I won't preach at you. Stone said, but Mrs. Pruitt's got a point, even if she makes it poorly. That woman's reputation is hanging by a thread. Yours too. I don't care about my reputation. Maybe you should, for her sake. Jack looked at the Reverend, a good man, one of the few who'd spoken against the town's treatment of Sarah. You think we should marry? Jack said. I think if you're committed to caring for her and those children, making it legal protects everyone. She might not want to marry me. Stone's eyes crinkled. Son, I've seen how she looks at you. She'll say yes. Jack's heart hammered. He hadn't let himself think that far. Hadn't dared hope. I'll talk to her, he said finally. Stone clapped his shoulder. Good man. Jack rode home through the afternoon cold, supplies tied behind his saddle, mind churning. Marriage. To Sarah, the idea terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. When the cabin came into view, smoke rising from the chimney, children's voices drifting through the trees, Jack realized something. He wasn't proposing out of duty. He was proposing because he wanted her to stay forever. 3 days after Jack's return, the creditor came. Sarah saw the wagon first, a black carriage cutting through the melting snow. Official and ominous. Her stomach dropped. Jack, she called. He emerged from the barn, saw the wagon, and his face went hard. Cyrus Webb stepped down, banker, landowner, the man who held mortgages on half the county. Beside him, the county clerk carried a leather case. Holloway, Webb said, tipping his hat with mock courtesy. Webb, I've come about your taxes. You're $47 in arrears. Jack's jaw worked. I know. Payments due in 2 weeks. Otherwise, the county seizes the property. Sarah's breath caught. Lucy appeared beside her, holding Lily's hand. The twins peered from behind Jack's legs. I'll have it, Jack said. Webb's smile was cold. Well, you heard you're feeding extra mouths now. Expensive business. Charity. 2 weeks, Jack repeated. Webb gestured to the clerk, who produced a document. Sign here. Acknowledges the debt and deadline. Jack signed without reading. Webb tucked the paper away, eyes drifting to Sarah. Mrs. Brennan? Heard you landed on your feet. Sarah lifted her chin. I'm managing? I'm sure you are. Webb's tone implied things that made Jack's fists clench. When the wagon pulled away, Sarah sagged against the doorframe. Jack stood frozen, staring at the rutted tracks in the mud. $47, Sarah whispered. I'll figure it out. How Jack had no answer. He'd sold everything valuable: the watch, his father's rifle, Emma's wedding ring. All he had left was the horse and the land itself. Sarah disappeared inside. Returned moments later with something clutched in her hand. Take this. She held out a gold pocket watch, ornate, engraved. Jack recognized it from her belongings. That's your husband's, he said. It was his grandfather's, worth $60, maybe more. Sarah, no, take it. Her voice cracked. You've given us everything. Let me give something back. I won't rob you of your past. My past is dead. Sarah's eyes blazed. This right here. Right now, this matters. These children matter. You matter. Jack stared at her, torn between pride and desperation. We're supposed to be partners, Sarah continued, voice breaking. So let me be your partner. I can't. You mean you won't? What's the difference? The difference, Sarah said, is that I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you, but you're too damn stubborn to let me. She turned and walked inside, slamming the door. The watch lay in the snow where she'd dropped it. Jack picked it up, the gold cold against his palm. Behind him, Lucy stood in the doorway. Mama cries at night, the girl said quietly. She thinks we'll lose this place, lose you. You won't. Then why are you fighting? Jack looked at the watch, at the cabin, at this child who'd become his in everything but name. Because I don't know how to let people help me either, he admitted. Lucy nodded, old beyond her years. Maybe you should learn. That night, Jack and Sarah didn't speak. She slept with the children. He sat by the stove, the watch heavy in his pocket. At dawn, wolves came. They hit the chicken coop like a storm, 4 of them, gray and hungry. Jack grabbed his rifle, fired twice. The wolves scattered, but not before killing 2 hens. He stood in the mud, surrounded by feathers and blood, and realized something. Everything was falling apart. The land, the supplies, the fragile peace. And his pride was the axe cutting it all down. He found Sarah in the kitchen, mechanically kneading dough. I'll sell the horse, Jack said. Sarah looked up, eyes red. She's worth $70, Jack continued. Enough for the taxes and supplies through spring. That's your only transportation. We'll manage. Sarah set down the dough, wiped her hands. We'll sell the watch too. Use the money for seed and stock. Start over properly. Jack crossed the room, cupped her face in his rough hands. We're partners. Yes. Then we decide together. Sarah nodded, tears spilling over. Jack kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. Outside, the wolves howled. Inside, 2 people made peace with sacrifice. Together, the blizzard came from nowhere, a late winter monster that turned the world white in minutes. Jack had ridden to town at dawn to sell the horse. Sarah waited by the window, Mary in her arms, watching snow pile against the glass. By noon, visibility dropped to nothing. He'll wait it out in town, Lucy said, trying to sound confident. But Sarah knew better. Jack wouldn't leave them alone in a storm. He'd ride through hell to get home. She was right. At 2 o'clock, a shape emerged from the whiteout Jack on foot, leading the horse through drifts that reached his thighs. Sarah threw open the door, and he stumbled inside, ice crusting his beard. You sold her? Sarah asked. Jack nodded, fumbling with frozen fingers to pull money from his coat. $72. Webb's paid. We're clear. Sarah grabbed blankets, stripped his wet coat, rubbed his hands between hers. The children huddled close, trying to help. You could have died, Sarah whispered. I told you. We don't lose each other. The storm raged for 3 days. They burned through wood faster than expected. Food ran low, but they were together, and that mattered more than comfort. On the second night, Jack found Sarah in the rocking chair, staring at the fire. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about what we're doing here, this arrangement. Jack's stomach clenched. If you want to leave, I don't. Sarah looked at him. But we can't keep pretending this is temporary. The children are settling. Lucy's learning to read. The boys follow you everywhere. Lily calls you Papa when she thinks no one's listening. Jack's throat tightened. I heard. The town thinks we're living in sin. Maybe they're right. You want to leave, Jack said, the words like ash. No. Sarah stood, moved closer. I want to stay. Properly. Legally. I want those children to have your name. Your protection. I want... She faltered. Jack waited. I want to be your wife. Sarah finished. Not because I owe you. Not because it's practical. Because when I look at you, I see the man I want to build a life with. Jack's heart hammered. Sarah, you don't have to feel the same. I understand if Jack kissed her. It was clumsy, desperate. 3 years of loneliness and grief pouring into the touch. Sarah gasped, then kissed him back, hands fisting in his shirt. When they broke apart, both were shaking. I thought I was done, Jack whispered. Done living. Done hoping. Then you knocked on my door, and everything changed. So that's yes. That's yes. Behind them. Lucy cleared her throat. They turned to find all 4 children watching. Various expressions of delight and smugness on their faces. Finally, Lucy said. Sam and Ben high-fived. Lily clapped. Even Mary gurgled approvingly. Sarah laughed a real laugh. The first Jack had heard. The sound filled the cabin like light. Outside. The storm howled. Inside. A family took shape. 2 weeks later. Jack and Sarah stood before Reverend Stone in the courthouse. The town had turned out curiosity, judgment, and a few genuine well-wishers. Mrs. Pruitt sat in the front row, lips pursed. Webb lurked in the back, arms crossed. Sarah wore a borrowed dress, mended and pressed. Jack wore his father's suit, moth-eaten but clean. The children stood beside them, Lucy holding Mary, the twins scrubbed shiny. Lily clinging to Jack's leg. Stone opened his Bible. Dearly beloved. Wait. Webb stepped forward. The crowd murmured. Something to say, Cyrus Stone asked mildly. Just wondering about the timing, Webb said. Man avoids taxes, then suddenly marries the woman he's been keeping. Convenient. Jack's jaw tightened. Sarah's hand found his. Squeezed. You've got a problem with me, Jack said quietly. Say it plain. No problem. Just think folks should know what they're witnessing. Then let me tell them. Jack turned to face the crowd. Sarah's hand stayed in his. 6 weeks ago, Jack said. This woman knocked on my door with 4 starving children. She'd walked 5 miles in the snow because every one of you locked your doors. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't asking for charity. Jack continued. She was begging for mercy, and she got none. Not from the church. Not from the good Christian folk of this town. None. Mrs. Pruitt's face flushed. So I took them in. Jack said, fed them, sheltered them. And you know what they saved me? Every one of them. I was a dead man walking, and they gave me a reason to live. He looked at Sarah, her gray eyes bright with tears. I'm marrying her because I love her. Jack said simply, because those children deserve a father. Because this is right and good, and the only damn thing that makes sense in this world. He turned back to Webb. You want to judge me, go ahead. But you'll have to judge her first, and I won't allow it. Silence. Then, from the back, a weathered farmer named Harris stood. I'll witness it. Another man stood. Then a woman, then more. Mrs. Pruitt remained seated, but she bowed her head as close to approval as she'd give. Webb's mouth thinned. He turned and left. Stone smiled. Shall we continue? The vows were simple. Jack's voice shook. Sarah's hands trembled. But they spoke the words. Slid Emma's old ring onto Sarah's finger, blessed by the past. Claimed by the present. I now pronounce you man and wife. Jack kissed his bride, and the courthouse erupted in applause. Outside, Harris pressed $10 into Jack's hand. For the children. Others followed $5 here, A bag of flour there, canned goods, a quilt, the town's conscience stirring at last. Jack and Sarah climbed into the borrowed wagon. Children piled around them as they rode home. Sarah leaned against Jack's shoulder. "Think they'll remember this kindly?" she asked. "Don't care," Jack said. "I've got everything I need right here." Lily tugged his sleeve. "Papa," Jack's heart stopped. "Yes, sweetheart." "Are we really a family now?" Jack looked at Sarah, at the children, at the future stretching before them. "We really are." Spring came slowly, then all at once. Snow melted into mud, mud dried into earth, and earth cracked open with green shoots. Jack and Sarah worked the garden side by side, him digging furrows, her planting seeds. The children scattering straw mulch. 6 weeks since the wedding. The cabin bore signs of permanence, now curtains Sarah had sewn, shelves Jack had built. Children's drawings pinned to the walls, and Sarah's belly, just beginning to swell. Jack noticed when she paused to press her hand there, a small smile on her lips. She caught him watching and blushed. When he asked softly, "November, I think," Jack pulled her close, kissed her temple. "Emma would have liked you." "I hope so." They finished planting as the sun climbed potatoes, beans, carrots, squash, enough for 8 people, maybe 9 by winter. Lucy appeared with water. "Mama." Ben found a bird's nest. "Don't touch it," Sarah called. "Let the birds be." The twins raced past, chasing a frog. Lily helped Jack pack dirt around the last seedling, her small hands mimicking his exactly. At midday, they walked to the small cemetery behind the cabin. Jack had cleared the weeds, repaired the fence. 2 graves lay there, Emma and their son. Sarah picked wildflowers, the first blooms of spring, and placed them on the stones. "Thank you," Jack whispered to the graves, "for sending her to me." Sarah's hand found his. They stood together in the warm sun, children playing behind them, and Jack felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. That evening, they gathered on the porch, Jack in the rocking chair, Sarah beside him. Children sprawled at their feet. Mary dozed in Sarah's arms. Lily leaned against Jack's leg. "Tell us a story, Papa." Lucy said. Jack thought about the knock before dawn, the desperate woman with starving children, the choice that changed everything. "Once," he began, "there was a man who thought he was finished with living." "Was he sad?" Ben asked. "Very sad. What happened?" Sam pressed. Jack looked at Sarah, at her smile, at the love in her eyes. "Someone knocked on his door," Jack said, "and everything changed." The children listened, rapt. Sarah rested her head on Jack's shoulder. Above them, stars emerged one by one, bright and infinite and full of promise. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, but they were far away, and the cabin glowed warm against the darkness. "Did they live happily ever after?" Lily asked sleepily. Jack kissed the top of her head. They lived. And that was enough. Sarah squeezed his hand. Inside her, new life stirred another chance, another beginning. The mountain wind carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. In the garden, seeds dreamed of sunlight. On the porch, a family breathed together, and Jack Holloway, widower, rancher. Father looked at the life he'd built from ashes and thought, some winters break you, some winters remake you. This one gave him everything.